name is Allie Belzer. I am a licensed professional counselor, a specialist in experiential education, and a clinical adventure therapist.
My name is Amanda Reedy, a licensed clinical social worker working as a mental health therapist. We believe therapy is a great tool for healing. However, we want to demystify what healing can look like, as in our experience, people care for themselves in creative, intuitive, and determined ways.
Each episode, we will get curious about healing that is outside traditional talk therapy and deconstruct how healing can be a practice that is innate to who we are. Just as singing is to birds and making honey is to bees, it's just what we do. Let's get it. Hi all, welcome to That's My Therapy and thank you for listening. In this episode, we talk with Lindy English, who is a trauma-informed artist and storyteller who devotes most of their time to creative and accessible psychoeducation. Lindy develops curriculum for schools around suicidality and mental health, as well as creates mental health art kits that help people get acquainted with their own healing journeys. I hope you enjoy, and may whatever needs to reach you, reach you. Stay close.
Another mental health broadcast on how to work in mental health without it ruining your mental health.
Why is that so tricky?
Yeah.
I think it's empathy fatigue.
I was going to say capitalism.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah. If I could do this work and like money is an illusion, like whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just like engagement with my village. Yeah, it'd be pretty fulfilling.
An appropriate amount of hours.
Yeah.
Less oversight from bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Everyone else's mental health would be better if their basic needs were met, and then you
In
just
society,
get to feel your feelings. It'd be cool.
It'd be so
It'd be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we liked your box for that reason of just if sometimes mental health can feel really gatekept to get into an office somewhere.
Yes.
And that can just feel super intimidating. And yeah, with your work, like we were just lying on the floor talking and like engaging. And I'm like, oh, well, this feels way more accessible to someone who's like first starting out and just getting curious about their healing.
And I think we should introduce Lindy and maybe
it's a really good call. Yeah. Lindy, yeah, can you introduce yourself, kind of what you do, what you're about, your mission?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Lindy, and I've been an artist and illustrator my whole life. And at 38, I decided to go back to college to figure out how to heal. I had just woken up from domestic violence, and that's where I learned the real art of storytelling and became trauma-informed over the last few years. And I married all of those together to become a trauma-informed artist and storyteller. Yeah.
description.
Yeah, well said. You've said that before. That was good.
I've said it.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of know a little bit about us. We're both mental health therapists and have always been like real therapy nerds. But we've found like the majority of our conversations just surrounded more so daily life rather than necessarily in the office, and doing sessions is like 90% of the work is when you leave. So yeah, the podcast making it evident that like healing is accessible outside of this space and people can find it in a lot of different ways. And yeah, obviously really connected with the work you do and how creative you've been surrounding healing and how like voracious, what's the word I'm looking for? Like hungry for knowledge and healing. And that's, how I picture the way you pursue your healing and like knowledge of healing practices.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and your art is so personal. The work that is in these kits, for example, for the listeners, it's like you really draw out sort of the parts of your internal world and what they look like, and the like body language that they have, and each, the way that they hold themselves and the emotions you can see all laid out. And it makes so much sense of like, well, this is a reflection of me.
Yeah.
And that helps so many people when they see themselves in it. That can be reflected back.
Yes.
Towards
If
people's
if
own
the art
internal
piece
world.
is honest enough, somebody could look at it and recognize the exact feeling and then know they're not alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We always start with the question on the podcast, what is your relationship to therapy? Like the word therapy, like historically, and then as you've evolved and now kind of adopted a therapeutic process.
What is my connection to therapy? To me, therapy was life or death.
Mm-hmm.
I just woke up in domestic violence and it was sink or swim. It was, if I don't heal, I'm done. I'm leaving this earth. And so therapy was kind of like, how do I stop the hemorrhaging? And I was in therapy like twice a week and then energy work every week. And then I was pursuing, college, and I was determined. I have the most amazing children. So I was determined to not sink. And that's what therapy meant to me. I don't think there's a better way to put it. It was, I don't have to die.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how. And so I went to understand. And, the gal that helped me, she was amazing. She had an office down by the river. And one day I was just kind of telling her, like, I can't figure this out. It had been maybe 4 or 5 months of therapy twice a week. And we walked out to the river and took our shoes off and rolled our pants up. And she brought me out into the river to my knees and taught me about dissociation and how the cold water therapy can actually signal your vagus nerve to start working again. And that was the moment. That was life-changing for me to realize that therapy can be physical. Yes. And that these brain prosthetics that we need to develop could be so clear, but therapy, especially when you're licensed and in the office, you're not allowed to say, do this, do that, do this, like here's the path, here's the bridges. And a lot of the time we come home with therapy like, wow, that was amazing, but what the hell do I do with it?
Yes. Right? Yeah.
And that's what I set out to do, was to create these workbooks and a magazine and art therapy kits that teach the psychology in a way that's like coffee with a friend, and then give homework assignments, and enough homework assignments that people are able to find their own prosthetics for their vagus nerve.
Can you go into that more? What do you mean when you say brain prosthetics?
Well, for me, a huge part of understanding what the word healing meant was becoming very familiarized with amputees. And when a person loses a limb and we look at them living their life and we're like, wow, what a badass. Look at them, living their best life, like nothing, moving forward. But when you really are friends with that person, you find out that they had to change their cabinetry in their kitchen, their steering wheel, the clothes they wear, the everything. And we don't look at them and say, like, what a sissy, they had to change everything. We don't look at them and say, dude, when are you going to grow your arms back? Like it's just not like that. But yet we look at mental health and say, when are you going to heal? Like, and then if we have somebody that says, no, I can't do this particular thing anymore, it's too triggering, let's do it this way. A lot of people will say, get over it, move on. When the truth is, that is where you need to build this prosthetic. You have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, right? Back of your brain. And that PTSD is firing nonstop. It doesn't even need a reason. If you have complex trauma, it's just going to keep going. And the part of your brain that's going to say, okay, I think we're okay, we can calm down now, it's overstimulated. It's not doing its job. It's like inflamed and exhausted. So you have to learn to do these physical things compared to, like, changing your cabinetry, changing your steering wheel. You have to learn to get in the cold water or have these little rituals of healing that become a prosthetic for your vagus nerve to tell it, hey, can you do your job and calm my body down?
Mm-hmm.
And that's
It's
what I
such
mean
a
by brain prosthetics.
it's such a beautiful metaphor, and it's actually one that I've used before too. Is that because so many people think that in mental health it equates to a moral failing or a character failing, that I am unable to move through the world like someone who doesn't have my specific trauma, brain chemistry, history, right? And it can be such a helpful reframing to say, your wounds will be your wounds. You will not regrow this limb, but we can find ways to be adaptive. And that means sometimes going against the expectations of society about productivity, about value, about worth. And those are big, heavy things to challenge, especially in the mental health, because when it's not a visible disability.
Yeah.
My partner is a theoretical mathematician, and so he will give me these comparisons of what I'm saying to math or engineering or, and he taught me about an asymptote where, and he's probably hearing me in the background going, say it right. But you have these numbers that get closer to zero and they'll never touch. They will get infinitely smaller, but never actually touch. And I think that's like trauma. We can learn to live with it and beside it infinitely closer to grow with our traumas. And that is healing. It's not regrowth of the limb. It's learning to heal beside it, with it.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. We use the concept of integration a lot. Of like, you can never undo the thing that has happened to you, but you can weave it into who you are in a way that it strengthens the whole. Yeah.
I think that trauma, Thich Nhat Hanh in his Steps of Enlightenment says that when you realize what pain and suffering is, you commit yourself to never causing it to others. And then you realize how incredibly interconnected we all are. And I think that through the healing journey, like you said, when you learn to interweave with what's happened, you will almost effortlessly weave into society and community and start lifting everything around you too. I hope.
I hope I just breathed that in. It was like my own little prayer. I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also love the language that, kind of taken from the disability community, which is like the identity of having a disability is the only identity that you will adopt assuredly, no matter who you are at one point in your life. And yet it's one of the most neglected communities when we talk about mental health. And there's so much wisdom that can be drawn from acknowledging that you will become disabled at some point in your life. It could be at any moment. And that the idea of self-accommodation and accommodation from society to make room for change of self, change in ability, change in appearance, etc. So I love the way we can frame that. One is accepting that we all need accommodation. It is necessary to live and flourish in the human world. And two, that we have the ability to extend self-accommodation to change the aspects of our environment to suit our needs. Because we say all the time, intrinsic motivation is bullshit. You cannot pull yourself up by the bootstraps of your soul and be better. You need to change your systems to accommodate what you have experienced. So I love that metaphor. Beautiful.
You're right on spot with some ancient philosophers too. Turn of the century philosopher said that motivation's not a thing. It doesn't exist. He says, what sane man who awakes in the morning where their fire has gone out and they're warm in the blanket is motivated to get out into the cold and stoke the fire?
Yeah.
He said that lack of motivation is generally a sign of sanity.
Yeah, it's very reasonable.
Yeah.
Well, and since capitalism and colonization is so driven by self-motivation and individualism of success, we forget that motivation comes from the village and comes from community and our experiences. And yeah, to not lose that and to engage with the tools like you provide that can be found anywhere, right? But you've so compassionately packaged it easily for us. Yeah, that they can seek that out themselves anywhere. So it sounds like, born from your own like need to heal and survival, you something switched and it was like it's heal or done. It's heal or die.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what made you curious about how to pursue healing in clearly a way that is pretty unique and personal to you, like art, energy work?
I think the real personal moment for me was deciding I wanted to be happy, and that it was no longer about following these rules and steps and guidelines and commandments that were given to me in the pursuit of happiness and the promise of happiness, when all I noticed I was getting was a hope. And it wasn't, there wasn't a payout of joy ever. So I started really focusing on my senses and my experiences, and looking for the intersections of philosophy and logic and psychology, and science, physiology, to see if I could find a state where happiness was, I don't want to say sustainable, because I'm not sure that happiness is the goal or is
But
sustainable.
Available.
I mean, there's
That's
just
right.
like joy
Yep.
has not been available
Yeah.
to folks who are experiencing it. It's like, I did not have access to self. And that's what people say. It's like, and then, yeah, you
And it's
have
hard to heal with joy, especially when
Yeah.
you're learning the psychology, but then how do you live it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's why I created these bridge products, and the theme of my business is heal with joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you noticed the urgency to heal and to change, but then you did what was so hard, which is draw from what you already know and made sense to you, how you naturally made sense of the world, art, philosophy, science, and logic.
Yeah.
And you weaved that in to your need to heal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was learning to choose me. And
Yeah.
once you have all the information in front of you, it's kind of like, do I choose to weave it in and choose
Mhm.
myself,
Mhm.
or what?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to take that leap where you're truly listening to your own wants. It's no longer these needs will bring me what I want. It's what do I want determines my needs.
Mm.
And that's hard, because you have to break through, years of gaslighting and name calling to do what feels so intrinsically selfish. But you can't help you or anybody until you do choose you.
Mhm.
I think that's where it became personal, right?
And then on top of, the product that you've designed to help people, what has helped people the most is you've modeled your parallel process of, I am doing this every day. And that in itself is permission giving for someone else to take that step. Because we never, ever, ever can grab someone and pull them into your side of things, or healing, or a change of behavior or thoughts. What you are doing is modeling, and just your existence alone, while you have parts of you that say is intrinsically selfish, but really you choosing that path is just giving permission to someone else to possibly do the same.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that. I appreciate the perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate your work that you're doing it.
I think that requires honesty. I think my superpower in life is honesty.
Yeah.
I'm willing to go on TikTok and show a video of me crying in the corner of my closet hiding and say, this is part of healing with joy. There's nothing wrong with this. Hide in your closet, you know? So even though I do these things and have joy on a daily, I still have my trauma. And the more honest you are, I think it breaks the stigma. We're not trying to turn it around and say, like, you know, it's actually wonderful. We're not. We're just trying to say it's real and it's okay.
Yeah. And it's very human. I think the like scientific acknowledgement / realization that our bodies change in response to trauma,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, should have changed everything. It's not just trauma. Think about how even the slightest bit of change or just in response to our experiences, that we change on a cellular level from neuron
Yes.
to neuron, how those neurons communicate. And then neglecting the fact that our bodies change equally in magnitude to healing and to signs of connection in the world.
Yeah.
Like our bodies are changing microscopically in response to our experiences.
Yeah. You know, I had that, what you're saying, I had it in this visual one time.
Sure.
I think we have this feeling that we get this one body and it'll have a potential and you got to live up to it. That's just kind of what we're taught. It's that simple. And so when you're not living up to it, or you're no longer able to run the way you used to, you constantly feel like you're just not filling up your cup in the proper way. The more I thought about that day, I realized that almost every single year of our life, we have a different body. We have a different cup. And our ability to fill it and what it requires and needs, it's just drastically different. So, you know, if it's this much liquid it can hold, we're not failing. We just have an espresso cup for a while, you know?
Yeah, this is just our cup right now.
Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the thought, is that that's why it's so human. Like it's written in our genetic code to change in response to our experiences. So I liked in the pamphlet, that in the kit that we did, you were like, I actually notice the emotion and then I do something to lean into it. If I'm feeling scared, I build a fort with my kids and hide inside it. And like how validating that is for your experience in the moment. Like you are letting your body shift and change in the way that it was meant to on a microscopic level, like ancestral level.
Well, it's amazing lesson for your kids.
Yeah.
Because of this. And I tell them too, I say, hey, you know what? Like my body just kicked into fear, probably something to do with my past. And we'll throw a blanket over a table and climb under it and play cars together. Sometimes, you know, we pop popcorn and make it a treat. So we're telling my body in particular, hey, not only do I see you, but I'm going to nurture you.
And not nurture the fear away with the agenda of I'm here to extinguish you.
Yeah.
But I'm here to see you, feel you, allow you to come, allow you to leave. Janina Fisher, who's a therapist that I admire quite a bit, who does a lot of trauma work, says feelings and sensations will come and go unless we assign danger to them.
Oh, I like that.
So if you feel the fear and then you are afraid of the fear, or you try to squash the fear or run away from it or shame the fear for being there, when you could have said, there's nothing wrong right now. There's nothing happening. You need to recognize that you're fine. Instead, if you just say, I'm feeling afraid, and then you offer what I would call a gesture of compassion towards the fear, not to say you need to leave, but I acknowledge you with the understanding that that fear will come and go.
Yeah. It's there to do something for you, teach you something. Yeah. And even if it's not there to teach you, it is there. So it's okay to sit down with it. It's not going to drown you if you're driving the bus.
Yeah. And it'll be there no matter what. So you choose how you want to sit with it. Let it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's either coming out with you leading, of saying we're actually shifting environments. We're going to lie on the floor. We're going to go to a quiet, darker place. Is
Yes.
you saying, join me here, versus I'm going to shove it down and it's going to come out sideways when I'm overstimulated and I yell at my kids, or I've snapped and now I'm sobbing on the floor and I can't get up,
Yes.
Yeah.
We have that brain-body contradiction, right? Like
Yeah.
our brain says everything's okay and our body says, no, it ain't. Like not. And both exist at the same time.
Yeah.
But we don't want them both to exist, right? That's some cognitive dissonance that we don't like.
Right.
So if instead we say, oh, everything's okay and I'm terrified.
Yeah.
Yes.
You say that to your kiddo. You know what? Everything's great. It's great, but for some reason I feel really scared. And you can do it with anger too. You can do it with anything. I'm having trouble breathing. Go grab the bubbles. Let's go outside and see who can blow the biggest bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Turn it into a way to teach your kids that it's okay to listen to yourself and that feelings are okay. You're teaching the greatest social emotional learning just by being honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of your work is centered around kind of condensing these ideas so they're processable to children. And parents. Can you speak more about how you engage specifically with people like developmentally young?
Wow, I haven't even thought of that. You know, what immediately comes to mind is my traumas started, I can remember some around 3 and 4 years old, and the arrested development is not small, right?
Yeah.
And if you grow up in an environment where emotions create abuse for yourself, even the good ones, like what are you happy about? You know, you have nothing to be happy about. Even the good emotions give you backlash. You're suddenly in a safe environment as an adult, and losing your balloon feels like you just lost everything.
Yeah.
So you have to start as a kid when you come out of abuse. So for me, I think I was just sharing what it's like to be a 16-year-old emotionally as a 40-year-old adult. I even remember having that experience going, wow, I had no clue what a friend was. I was 39 and I just remember, man, my therapist was amazing. I had given her like a necklace or something, and she brought it back and gave it to me and said, I can't accept this. I am blurring the lines. You know, I'm not your friend. I'm your therapist. And I try to approach any huge emotion with curiosity. And in that moment, I said, okay, well, I'm not sure how I can trust you then. Can we have a discussion about it if you're not my friend? And at the end of the conversation, I was kind of appalled that I viewed her as a friend because I did nothing for her. It was the most one-sided friendship, right? Like I show up and you listen and teach and heal me. And that really blew my mind. And I realized I even looked at grocery tellers like they were my friends. So I had to redefine and put up the castle walls and figure out things that I could have been taught at 9 years old, 8 years old. So there's a large amount of acceptance and surrender to the younger parts that never had their turn. And I think that's why I'm able to communicate it in a way that kids can learn it. It's what I wish I had learned and had to learn at a cost.
Right.
Yeah. How cool. I feel like we do a lot of parts work in our own practices, and
parts
there
work.
exists.
I know.
There's this
I'm like Kool-Aid. IFS.
It's the truth. It's so the truth.
Yeah, but there's this tendency to, find these exiled, typically younger parts and reparent them and comfort them as self. And yeah, I think you wrinkled my brain just now in the fact that I'm less familiar with giving those parts power to lead, let alone teach. So like you're not providing this information to children about suicide, self-harm, like big, heavy trauma topics and how to cope with it. And it sounds like you are actually tapping into the power and knowledge of your inner child.
Absolutely.
And help, like, they take the lead. And like, I learn by teaching. That's one of like the best ways that I can actually conceptualize something. And yeah, what a powerful act to say, yeah, you never had it before. You know it best. You drive. You talk to these kids.
Absolutely. And that's how you're going to connect with them on the same level.
Yeah.
I know 100% what you're feeling because I can feel it right now.
Yeah.
That pain is in me. It hasn't left. It won't ever leave. Here is how you can learn to work with it before you're 40.
Yeah.
My inner child right now is like,
did you hear? I have good ideas too.
The sass, the inner sass is like, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you never listened to me while you were teaching 4th grade and really mad at all those kids for being kids. Maybe I could have helped.
Isn't that the power though? Like, if you think about, my partner's phenomenal at this because he is such a high IQ engineer, right? Mathematician, theoretical, and engineer. And he will look at something and say, what don't I know from this side? What don't I know from this side? What don't I know? And he will create this ability to explain it from any direction so that he could kind of teach anybody, right? And I think that what did I learn about this at 10? What did I not learn? What do I need? If we look at it from every perspective, we can understand that pain in a very connected way to the people around us.
What a holistic way. I've never thought, like, I do tend to look at a problem or anything from like all sides. That's one of my skills, but never like top bottom developmentally. Like, what does this mean for this age version of myself? Never in my days have I thought to do that.
Well, you love parts work. Here's my latest revelation that I'm trying so hard to really turn into pictures and story. When you look at parts work, where like you have all of your parts, but you can hear them like at the same time. So it's almost like a civil war in your head. Like lock the door. No, go for a run. No, just clean the house. And it's like this really confusing space. That's where my brain sits a lot, but I've done serious integration work, so I don't hear that the same way. But then the question is, if you have a family system of any degree of dissociative tendency, now you have to say, what was life like at 10? And you have to really tap into each of these parts. Yeah, at each level going down.
Yeah.
And that's a weird realization that if I'm in my complete defender mode, my 10-year-old emotions that I needed to learn and heal now have to be, I have to have a completely different coping plan and skill for that part.
That gets complicated.
Yeah, I don't know how to turn it into a non-complicated visual yet, and I'm working on that.
Yeah.
I picture it a lot like on the Hunger Games where they're in the land that just switches. And it's almost like the switch is the moods, not the personality. But when that family member steps in your mind, depending on the mood and the emotion, it's a completely different processing and synapses happening.
Right. How my defender shows up when this person is here is different from how my defender has to show up for me at school. Or,
I just pictured like a chessboard, which I already don't know how to play. And it's a little complicated. And then I saw like matrixing in my mind, and it like turns and then like expands outward into like a billion chessboards next to each other all over.
Yeah. It can get confusing. That's why I just will allow myself to sit in it. And I'll say, wow, I just saw it. let me just stare at that. Let me hurt in that
Yeah.
space as long as I need to in order to turn it into what would make sense for my 12-year-old.
Yeah.
Right.
Just a new moment.
We don't have to solve it.
No, I
It's
think
okay that the answer is it's this complex.
it's so
Yeah.
complicated, and the answer is simple, which is like presence
Yeah.
and
Listen, hold
compassion
it.
in the
Yeah.
here and now. No matter what, like that's probably the answer is self-compassion
Right.
and presence with whatever it is. And just knowing the complexity of it helps us to say, I'll never get it. I'll never fix it. And it'll never go away.
But what an exciting thing to realize that you can harness any age inside of you and learn retroactively
Yeah.
and heal and grow and continue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Can we tap in a little bit to specifically your trauma-informed artist and storyteller? Can you, please share like your experience with art and storytelling, and like how does that tie into everything we're geeking out about today?
Well, storytelling, I've always had a very visual brain, right? Like everything is an image. So if I can turn something into this three-dimensional view, then I can share it and tell it. I have loved being an entertainer. I'm not sure if it was part of the people pleasing that came from abuse as a kid or just, I don't know, my loudness. But when I went back to college, creative nonfiction was a huge passion of mine. One of my tattoos is by Montaigne. It's French, and he was the prose essay for creative nonfiction. He's like the father of it. And it stands for What Do We Even Know in French. I
Got chills. Yeah.
I love he said that the purpose of writing is to get to know yourself. And so I started sharing my stories in writing, and I had a college professor tell me that my why should people read it was so loud and clear that I needed to do it more. So I didn't even know what my why was. She apparently did. But I started doing tons of little prose essays and stories around my healing. And when I shared them with people, they would say, like, you just put into words 1 year of my life. And so then I started, maybe I'm really good at exaggerating in stories as well. So that helps with the storytelling in there. But like in Las Vegas, I was there for a week, and I did one rally with 3 to 6th graders. And there were 256 of them, and it was phenomenal. And I was telling a story of how I broke the nose off my face and it shifted playing soccer. And my mom burst into tears and said, "You used to be so beautiful." And I was like, "What?
Whoa.
I didn't even know you thought I was beautiful, and now I'm ugly?"
Yeah.
And for me, when you can tell the story, including the humor, as well as the awkwardness and the pain, you're able to truly give the human condition. And when you tie that then in with psychology and philosophy and science, you're saying, look how human it truly is. And then I tie it together with an image. That's actually another tattoo, the dead bunny on my arm. That it's a long story, but the point of the bunny is that even a dead rabbit should be able to understand the purpose of your art. So when you have an image, like here's my little inner child image, everybody can look at that and recognize the story behind it. So if you can tell a story in an image and then you add your words and your feelings, you've added visual, kinesthetic, and audio, and I believe it can reach anybody with those three. So that's the luckiness of my unique situation, was that I could find all three of those.
Yeah, that people can come in no matter where they are and how they learn and get something. Like something about it will reach them, what needs to reach them.
Yeah. And I think stories are missing in the world these days. Like, that's what connects us, is truly hearing someone's experience and story. And we don't have tribal living anymore. So we don't have handed down stories and a tied purpose.
Yeah. The theme of the week for me in therapy, we always have like themes just come up in therapy for some reason. Like, oh yeah, theme this week is grief. And it's usually the same. And it's like, why is this coming up so much? But the theme this last week for me was because I just opened my own practice and I'm like rebuilding some like storytelling with clients, like give me your testimony, your life story. And the theme has been like, no one else knows all of me. Like no one else knows every section of my life. Everyone gets bits and pieces for what they can like benefit from me sharing with them. You're the only person who knows like everything. And I'm like, that's awesome. I'm so flattered. And damn it.
Can't be the only
No,
person.
that cannot be us. Like that cannot be humanity. It's not sustainable.
No.
For me, the person who sees you an hour a week, to be the only one who knows all of you.
Right.
And I think that's why I'm so passionate about experiential work, in that I can give you some structure and some insight, but you do it. Like we do it together and you bring it in all your work. It's like, make it tangible. Stop thinking about it, stop talking about it, and engage with it. Sit with it and create something with it, and then share it so that people can see all of you.
Agree. That level of honesty and vulnerability, I think, is the greatest superpower on earth.
Yeah.
That's at the core. Even the story of how Buddha became Buddha, are you familiar with it? Quick short summary is he tried everything, including living like perfect, right? And he didn't reach nirvana. He couldn't become Buddha, even perfection. And then Miru, which is the demon, everybody has their own Miru. It's the accumulation of every shitty thing that you've thought, done, or experienced, or had done to you. Everyone has their own. And Miru was coming for Buddha, and his monks said, run, hide. And he said, I'm done. I've tried everything else. Set the table, get my tea, get my biscuits, and let me meet my Miru. And when they sat down and he said, I welcome you. You are a part of me. Let's meet. He reached nirvana.
There you go.
You got to take it all.
That's so funny. We often say to each other, like, take your critic to lunch, or like take whatever part of you is being like really loud right now, take into a lunch, just like a friend that's freaking out. Just be like, all right, come on, you
sit beside me.
Yeah.
What's up?
So I'm gonna take your Miru to tea.
Yeah. You know, I love that you said that. I learned this from a book called Tea and Cake with Demons.
Really?
Cute.
That's so funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I forgot. This is my new magazine.
I was going to ask, like, can you share some of your work and where to reach you and how to engage?
So I just launched the Lionheart Healing Journey. It's a mental health magazine. So this is only, I think on the website, it's like $20 because it covers shipping, and it's quarterly magazine. This one's all on inner child work. It's jam-packed with my art pieces as well. It's all on my website, lindyart.com. There's a piece on what it's like to surrender your traumas to the earth.
Wow.
Love.
Yeah, you guys have to see the visuals to match this. Wow.
Yeah, this is all about having a funeral for your inner child. And I have guidebooks and workbooks, and I have an inner child art therapy box on the website right now. And I do a ton, lot of suicide prevention. Right now, I am hard at work filling up like 20,000 products in boxes for a 23 school shipment. Wow. And they'll have a ton of suicide prevention and art therapy things down in the Las Vegas school system. And that's what I do. And I also love coming and doing like leadership presentations. And I've done those all over the place. So if anyone's interested in that too, I love it.
Okay. Again, that's lindyart.com, lindyart.com. And you can find all these services and products there. And otherwise, Lindy is a testament that people can be on social media and be helpful, which we have not found the way to do ourselves yet. So please engage,
guide us
with them on TikTok and Instagram, and give us some pointers, Lindy, how to engage with social media and not feed the worms in my brain.
I'll let you know when I figure that out.
Okay.
It's pretty tricky.
Yeah. Anything else to add, Lindy?
No, I really appreciate what you ladies are doing too. I love this podcast. I am so thrilled that you started this. Kudos, like for real. Interconnection. It's truly going to help so many people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, appreciate you. I hope we can collaborate in the future on something and maybe do an experience of some kind.
Awesome.
Thank you. Please keep doing this work. Obviously, I think your spirit demands it of you. And the world will thank you for it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for listening, everyone. And stay close.
Stay close. Okay. Thanks, Lindy. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to That's My Therapy. As a general disclaimer, the topics discussed in this podcast are just one unique perspective, not prescriptive mental health advice. May you find healing where it finds you. If you are feeling suicidal or in need of immediate help, you can reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing